Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD1111 Node.js class for the fall 2020 semester, I've been going through and doing a series of presentations based on our textbook, Get Programming with Node.js by Jonathan Wexler. So far I've gone through and done an intro, and I've gone through Unit 1, which are lessons 0, 1, and 2. And I thought this might be a good time to break away a little bit, because one of the things referenced in Unit 1 was Appendix A. Now this is stuff we should have already talked about at the beginning of the semester, but I just want to cover it one last time. And as the author says here, it's about 7 or 8 pages long. In this appendix, the author says that he covers JavaScript syntax introduced in ES6 as it applies to Node.js. Alright, so it says this book covers some of the ES keywords and formats. You'll use keywords or terms that have a reason or meaning. You know that already. The first one here, as you can see, is let. Alright, and when we were in the AWD1111 class, we basically created every variable and put var in front of it. Alright, that is highly discouraged today. It says with ES6, it's more appropriate to use the let keyword to define variables, as they apply to a specific scoped block. Alright, unless a variable is defined in a particular block of code, you can't access it. So in other words, we've got in here let num equals 0. And you'll notice that if we come through here and we put this in, I don't normally like to copy this, but let's see if I can copy it. I haven't even tried, so. Let's see if we can start Node and then paste that in. I think we're going to get an error here, but we'll see. Alright, so that's function sample. So let's see if we can call sample now or we get an error. 60. It took it. Oh, okay, it's because we used var. I'm sorry. We used var right there. Alright, we said var num equals 60. If the number is greater than 50, it is. Notice let equals 0. So you would have thought it would have reset it to 0. It did not do that, though. Var has weird scope. Alright, let's try this. Let's go in here. Oh, let's just take a look at what the author has. Because let variables are scoped to code blocks beyond functions, they could be global variables to a module or an entire application. As a result, let gives variable definition more security and is preferred to var. So, if we had changed this, let's see. In fact, let's do this. Let's remove. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this right now. And again, I would have been better off when I showed you this to done it like this. So let's see. Let's go into Node. And let's have a function. They call it sample. Let's just call it example. Okay. Now we've got here var num. Let's let this be a let. Okay, so let num equals 60. If num greater than 50, and you know of course that it is, let num equals 0. Console.log num. Now let's call example. This should be 0. Still 60. Oh, because we have let in here twice. Okay, My mistake. We still haven't saved it, so. Alright. I want to try this again because I think it's worth showing it to you. See, it's going to give me an error because I've already defined sample. So let num equal 660 if num greater than 50. Expect a token curly. All right. Try it again. Node. I didn't do that, so I just tried to start doing the function. Node. Let's be nice here. So use strict. Okay. Function. Sample. Var, not var. Let num equals 60 if num greater than 50. Num equals 0. Console.log num. Now when I call sample, it should give me 0, and it does. The bottom line is this: var is considered very poor programming practice. Alright, it allows you to create global variables, which you really shouldn't do. Changing that var that we had here to a let, and then removing the let part from there, alright, allowed us to reset it because this has got function scope. When you use strict, you can't redefine let, whereas you can with var. Okay, yeah, the reason that when I started monkeying with it that it allowed me to do that was because of the fact that I used let instead. Alright. Believe it or not, someone has just knocked at my door, so I've got to leave for a second. No, I don't, because my wife got it. Alright, a const variable. A const variable can't be reassigned. It allows you to create a constant. If you try to reassign a const, you should get a duplicate declaration error. So here we've got const base price equals 1,000, and here we're doing a let on that, so we should get an error if we try to do this. Let's see if we do. Again, I normally don't like copying these. We should be doing them ourselves, but I'm just trying to get through the appendix here, so that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So paste that in, and notice it says it's already been declared. Alright, so it's giving us an error there. Alright, next we have string interpolation, and as the author says here, until ES6, to print or log a variable you had to append it using a plus. And it's okay to do that, but now you can use backticks to allow string interpolation. So rather than writing this and have to break it up with plus signs, you can write it as one big string. And this is really nice when you start to include putting in HTML, alright, as you'll see as we go on in here. As the author mentions here, the result in code is cleaner, easier to read, and easier to edit. Now, and again, you may not agree that it's easier just because you've always done it one way, and now basically what we're saying is you can do it another way. Alright? Alright, the next thing in here are arrow functions. And as mentioned, arrow functions are one-way ES6, can make your code more succinct and easier to read. With the arrow, it's also called the fat arrow symbol, so it is an equal sign followed immediately by a greater than sign. Not a minus, but an equal sign. Right there. And a change in the conventional function syntax. It says you can turn a multi-line function into one line. So let's look at what they've got here. This is print name. Console.log, my name is. So I'm going to grab all this again. And I'm going to paste that in. Okay, so there's that. Now, I'm going to say it's called print name, and I'll put in my name. And it says my name is Chuck. Exactly what you'd expect. In other words, it works just fine. However, there's a faster way to do it. Now notice here, let print name equals name equals. So we're immediately setting name, or setting the print name function equal to, says take name, console log it. So this should give us the same exact thing that we just saw. Now, since we've already defined name, I don't know if it's going to give us an error in here or not, but we'll look. And it says print name has already been declared. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get out of here, and then let's try it again. Now, what's the problem? Problem is name was never declared, was it? It says syntax error near the backtick. Says you can rewrite this code as shown in the next listing. Let print name equal name, console log my name is. So there is still, right in here, we have never assigned a value to name. .log value name. I'm trying to figure out, I know how you call this one. Well, let's go on. Let's look here. So here we're creating, notice it says example use of a this keyword within functions. So we're creating here a new object. The object has got a name, so it's called dog. It's got a name, Sparky. It's got a print name after time. In this example, dog.printName after time prints my name is undefined because this dot name here is out of focus or out of the set timeout scope, despite the fact that it refers to the dog object. Within arrow functions, this persists within the timeout. So the difference between doing it this way and using the word function and doing it this way with using the fat arrow syntax is this will preserve it. Now you can print my name is Sparky. Alright. It says to succeed with Node.js, you need to succeed with JavaScript in general, because Node.js requires sufficient knowledge of core JavaScript. This lesson reviews what you need to know to get started. It says if you haven't had experience, yeah, they're offering you another book. REPL we've already started looking at. Remember that REPL is the read, evaluate, print loop. Alright? As they say that in many ways this is similar to the console window in a Chrome browser. In REPL it says you're able to run any JavaScript code. You can also require Node.js modules to test different aspects of an application. We already looked at this, and as far as starting REPL, you noticed as soon as we entered Node and hit enter that our prompt changed to the greater than sign. It says you can think of REPL as running a Node.js application that responds to your commands instantaneously. Not a bad way to look at it. So if we look here, we can put in both of these commands. We're not asking it to print or anything. The reason you get undefined here is it's trying to return something, and there's nothing to return. So it says now perform some operations. So we've said sentences, the meaning of life is, and x is 42. So once we say sentence plus x, that's like saying this is 3 and that's 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6. But in this case, what we're saying is take the meaning of life is, alright, that's sentence plus x, so it's going to convert the x to a string, and it says the meaning of life is 42. Kind of a silly example, but you see it nevertheless. There's no limit in the ways you can use the REPL environment to behave like any Node.js application you've used or seen before. You can also use the tab key to auto-complete variable and function names and list object properties. If you define a string by the variable name sentence, for example, and you're unaware of what functions can call on that, you can add a dot to the end and press tab. So that's the kind of thing that you get then. You can find additional REPL commands in lesson 1. We've already looked at that. So as we finish this up, using REPL in application environment, remember you can go in. It says create a single function module in multiply.js. Well, let's look at this. It says as you build more custom modules in your project, you'll notice it's tedious to load all these files into REPL to test the functionality. If you wrote a module called multiply.js like the one below that contains a function to multiply two numbers, you need to require that module into REPL by entering require and then the path, which is the current directory multiply, along with every other module you'll need. What's more, you'd need to enter these lines for every new REPL session. Rather than doing that, as it says in the middle of page 434, you could bring REPL into your modules. Alright? So, listing 813 shows how to use the REPL module in a project. So you're saying const REPL equal require REPL. You can create a module within your project directory called custom REPL.js that requires all modules you want to test at the same time. So it says here, this file shows the REPL module being required and then a REPL server starting. Right? Like a Node.js HTTP server, this REPL server has a context from which you can load custom variables. So after it's started, you could add a name variable and your multiply module. All you need to do now is navigate to your project directory in terminal and enter node custom rep1. It says you'll see the REPL prompt, only this time the context contains all the modules you want to test. and it can come in handy. So this was simplistic. I'm looking on here, and my guess is 20 minutes. I guess it was longer than I thought. But we will go through these. We will go through these in much more depth and breadth of coverage as we go through the book. The next thing we're going to cover then again is we're going to go through, start on Unit 1. Unit 1 begins on page 31, and it begins with Lesson 3, which is creating a Node.js module. And I'll be back with that shortly.